Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our virtual NBC6 Voices on our Facebook and YouTube pages. I'm Jawan Strader. Well, caregiving is a very big responsibility, especially for young people. Millions of children currently serve as family caregivers for their loved ones. In Florida, roughly 300,000 children deal with the issue. The pandemic has only added to the weight on their shoulders. And May is National Military Month, and many of those receiving care are veterans. Well, tonight, we're talking to the director of the new documentary, Sky Blossoms. The film skylights and spotlights young caregivers and military families. It was nominated for Best Documentary at the AARP, the magazine 2021 Movies for Grown-Ups Awards. So please welcome to the show the director, Richard Louie. Also joining us is Yvette Miley. She's the Senior Vice President for MSNBC and NBC News. She spent many years here in South Florida as news director at NBC6. Also, my big sister, one of my mentors, or I could say younger sister, because if I say big, I may get in trouble for that. So welcome to the show, the both of you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us, Joanne.
You got it, Richard. Well, Richard, let's start off with you. Explain the title of the documentary, Sky Blossoms.
So in World War II, it's when we first started using air power to help our frontline troops. And when the paratroopers would get close to the line, they would jump out of the planes, right? And that's, again, World War II. And the way that the parachutes would open, they'd look like blossoms. And so the troops on the ground that were getting the help, they would say, "Here come the Sky Blossoms." And we named it Sky Blossom because the 5 children that are focused on in the film are that help behind the front line. They are taking care of their father or grandfather who need the help. And they're also blossoming as people. So that's, Joanne, why we called it Sky Blossom.
I love it. And you call young caregivers the next greatest generation. So what did you learn about them?
First of all, I was wowed. Here's an old guy sitting down with these very hardworking 11 through 26 years olds, and the honesty that they gave me throughout the entire conversation. You know what it's like. It's like 5 people, all the lights coming down upon them. We were using an Interatron, which means they're looking straight into the camera when I'm speaking with them. So they actually don't see me. They just see a picture of my face. And so after all of that, they were still able to be very open about their journey. And we didn't include a lot of what they told us, but many of them became emotional. But the film was not to show these young caregivers as being emotional. We wanted to show that they were heroic and that they cared for people. And right now we need to show those values out there, caring for other people.
It's interesting, Richard, because so many of us go through this experience, no matter what our age. It's pretty surprising to hear about the young ones that you're talking about, this young generation. But you also have a personal story and experience as well. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, well, there's this other person on the screen right now that just got zoomed out, but we'll get her back in a second. 8 years ago, my dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and I went through the thought process of what should I do. He's in California. I work in New York. And so I thought it was going to be the end of my career. And so I walked in to my boss's office with a lot of trepidation. Right. She was known as an absolute amazing news director, as well as a great editorial mind. And so I thought, I've got an 8-day-a-week job. Before that, she was sending me all sorts of places. And how could I take an 8-day-a-week job, if you will, and still go take care of my dad? So I thought it was going to be really the end of something that I really enjoyed. And in other words, that I expected, Joanne, that you would say, well, we love you, great guy, but square peg, round hole. And when things change, come on back. But instead, she said, well, I'm a long distance caregiver too, Richard. And my mom is in Florida. I'm in New York. And let's come up with some ideas about how we can get this done. And I was, Joanne, our industry, I was flabbergasted that she would even think of it. And it was through her own kindness and, and selflessness that she did this. Cause I got to tell you, having somebody that's working Friday, Saturday, Sunday is going to be more work than it is going to be easier.
That's right.
And so that person is that other person on the screen, and that's Yvette Miley, who, as I wrote to her very quickly in a note, it was interesting because wasn't thinking about what I was writing. And Yvette, I don't know if you wrote the note, but I said, "Dear Yvette, thank you for changing my life, because it changed my life. That one selfless, let's come up with 4 ideas, Richard." And she really did come up with 4 ideas. A year later, we pulled the trigger, and I started to fly back and forth about 200,000 miles a year to care for my dad.
My goodness. And we do have her on the screen. We have Yvette on right now. And
Her
you
fault.
are
Her fault.
It's
That one. That one.
Well, Yvette, you are Richard's boss at MSNBC. I mean, you allowed him to work part-time to work on this documentary. Why is telling these stories so important to you?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Jawan, as a main anchor here in South Florida. You don't have to do voices. You can just do your Monday through Friday gig and not do this show. But this is an added show that you do to give voice to people who have great stories to be told that may not fit in the 11 o'clock news or the 6 o'clock news. So thank you, Jawan. Richard is a consummate journalist. He sees stories everywhere he looks. And to shine the light on his personal story and to know that there are other caregivers out there, he took it to the next level. He said, yes, I'm living this experience with my own family, but there are other stories out there that need to be told regarding other caregivers. And looking at this sky blossom, you can't watch it and not be moved. You can't watch it and not feel something. And I think that's what journalism is about. It is needle and provoking people to feel, to think, and in some cases to act. You should be able to see a little bit of the humanity in the stories that we tell. And that's what Richard brought to this effort, to Sky Blossom. And how can you not support this great work? And why would you not support it?
What stood out most to you in Sky Blossoms when you finally saw this documentary?
The human condition and the human spirit. And at that point, seeing others care for their loved ones, it reminded me and triggered in me the idea that we were fortunate enough to have my mom with us for 91 years. But when she couldn't care for herself, two of my sister Ann was with her, my niece Lashana, my sister Gloria, and family members at different points would jump in and do what needed to be done. It did take a team. We lost our mom last month, and it may seem natural for us to lose my mom at age of 91, but it is unnatural in the world to be in the world without my mom. Amen. And so to see those stories, it just reminded me of the human spirit and the human condition, and how we have to care for people. We sometimes don't pick the circumstances we end up in, but how are we going to respond? And so it encouraged me to do more. And I learned a lot from Richard and having conversations with Richard about his experiences. I learned to be patient when talking to my mom, because Mom, I just told you that same thing and you're asking again. Right. So I learned from Richard, and I learned watching Sky Blossom.
Hey, man, it's interesting because I could relate so much being, someone, only child who moved my mother in with me 12 years ago, and she's still with me. But, as she's getting older, she needs more and more care, and it can be challenging. But I remember my mom when I was younger, she's like, you better never, ever put me in an old folks home. I will disown you, type thing. But then you see just how complex it is to care for your mother or father or a loved one. It's not easy. And so let's talk about the families in your documentary, Richard, in your film, all of them young caregivers, and they're featured are military caregivers. So what do they all have in common?
Reflecting on what you said, Jawan, and Yvette, you too, it was as Yvette was going through her caregiving journey, and I was, and you are too, Jawan, it was, I put it in the movie treatment 5 years ago. I said, joy despite difficulty, because it feels, when you're in the middle of it, to be very painful. I used to get off at 11 p.m. and then I'd go down into the subway at 3 o'clock to get out to JFK to catch the first flight out to San Francisco. And you have a lot of time to think when it is in the middle of winter. You're the only one on that subway platform, and you're asking yourself why you're doing it. And one of the clarifying things in that is to find the joy despite difficulty, because as all of us know in this gathering, it ain't easy, but we are laughing harder and we are crying harder and we are living stronger. And that's the one thing I think we all could share through our caregiving journey. And that's the focus of all 5 of the children. They are in the Midwest, the South, the East, and the West. They're in the Pacific Islands. They are Latino, Black, Asian, Native, and white. And the purpose of all of them, although they may come from different backgrounds, the one binding thing is that they care for other people. And that was the focus, as Yvette was saying, is that there was that bit of humanity. And I really wanted to shine a light like that pinch on the butt there. Despite all of that difficulty, Rihanna there and Rocio holding hands and smiling, yet they didn't know when they could lose Brian, as you could see with his trach tube, and he can't talk anymore. And all of that shows that through our difference, we are really more similar, because we are going through this time of regionality, of race, and we need more binding messages and more unifying messages. And so those 5 families, the attempt was to show that. And that was something that often when Yvette and I would work day to day together, those are the sort of enterprise stories that she would okay for me to do. We did one on blackface and yellowface in Seattle, Washington, because she understood those parallels. We cannot accept blackface. We cannot accept yellowface. And in this movie, we needed to accept that we may look different, but we are all really, we share more than we do that is different.
Amen. And you followed them around for years. And so what really touched you about their stories? We're showing just clips of video here, but what I see one thing in common with all of them. I see love. That's what I see just by looking. I haven't heard sound at all, but I see that love there. So what really touched you about all of their stories, and how did you find these families?
So I would leave New York, go to San Francisco, but I'd stop on the way to film them over the course of 3 years. And it was through the Asian American Journalists Association that we did this project. We were looking for, there's over 53 million family caregivers, no pay, no training, right, Joan? No pay, no training for you. And Yvette the same, but we do it. And 53 million, yet we don't even talk about it. It's not part of our culture. But as I was talking about at different events, I realized that, we needed to have something that would change our culture about caregiving, about caring for other people. And so I reached out to all of the community groups, Alzheimer's Association, ARP, and others, to say, hey, who in your area represents this amazing bravery and heroism? And so this is Kamiley here on the right, and this is Jenna, who lived through homelessness. They, despite like the homeless Jenna, exhibit such heroism despite so much tough stuff. Darren, who took care of her dad, Chaz, who lost both his legs and has a fused arm. She'd been taking care of him, Joanne, since she was 6 years old. And I look back at those pictures when she was 6, and you just see the pain that she was living through. And all of them are like, I wouldn't have my dad or my mom any other way. I wouldn't have them any other way. And to see them feel that with their parents living through disabilities, this is going to be a special generation, is what I mean to say. This 5 million, young caregivers, 17 and younger, they are truly the next greatest generation because they represent the values. They may not know it right now, they may not talk about it, but I am feeling so encouraged and hopeful about what's next for the country because I just have to look at them.
Hey man, 5 million, 17 and younger. That's just a daunting number when you hear that. And speaking of young caregivers, caring for a loved one can be satisfying, exhausting, joyful, frustrating at the same time. So we want to spend a few minutes speaking to a young person in our area here in South Florida who is also a caregiver. So please welcome Tiara Borsay. She's a ninth grader. She takes care of her grandmother. Tiara, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Well, Tiara, how long have you been caring for her, your grandmother now?
I've been caregiving ever since I could walk as a baby.
Ever since you could walk.
Yes.
Okay, tell me what types of things that you do for your grandmother.
I help her around the house. Like before, she had people coming to help her. I would like mop the floor, clean up for her, like help with the dishes and stuff. And like if she's in pain, I would help her like get up from her wheelchair to the bed or like from the tub to the bed. And I would help her with her medication and stuff like that.
What's the hardest part for you, Tiara?
The hardest part, I would say, like I have two things. One is like helping her with her food because she's very picky about like how much food she wants. So I have to like show her it and I want to always get it right. And the second hardest part is like sometimes when I'm like having to carry her from her wheelchair to the bed, she's a little bit like heavy. So it would like hurt my back and stuff, but I get through it.
So that's the hardest part. What's the best part of caring for your grandmother?
Uh it's spending time with her. Like she makes me happy. I just love being around her.
And it seems like you've had to grow up even faster compared to maybe some of your peers.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
How difficult has that been?
Uh it's not difficult. It's like sometimes when I would like want to go to my dad's house and stuff, I would like get scared because one time when I went to my dad's house, she had fell and she couldn't get up. So she had to like try to push herself up.
Wow,
And like
man.
we have a camera in her room and then like she sent me the video and I like got scared. So now when I go out, I would like call her every 20 minutes to make sure she's all right.
Well, you don't sound like a ninth grader. I mean, you sound like a young adult who has been going through this for years and years. What do you want folks to know out there about caregiving?
Like when you see somebody like in the street in a wheelchair, like just be very respectful to them and like don't call them like names and stuff. That's what I
Ha-
would say.
It's interesting that you should point that out. Is that something that you've experienced in the past?
That's something that my mom has experienced because like she'll be coming from Walmart. One time she was coming from Walmart and like the people were cutting the grass and like she like told them to stop because the stuff would get in her eyes. So she
Hmm.
was like going like to her house and then like the guy that cuts the grass, he's like, oh, like she's telling him, can you please stop cutting the grass? And he's like, no, I can't stop. That's my job. And she's like, it's getting in my eyes. And he's like, well, that's why you're in a scooter. And then like she told me that and I like almost cried.
Oh, wow. Well, let's bring Yvette and Richard back into this conversation. And Richard, what do you think when you're listening here to someone? I know you've interviewed many already through your documentary. So you're right now you're listening to a young caregiver, and so what do you think listening to her right now?
Well, Jawan and Tiara, good to meet you. Is we struggle with the name of the movie because we just wanted to call them young superheroes.
Yeah.
We wanted. There's a lot of things we wanted to call them because they're so amazing. But you could hear what Tiara was saying, in that it's so honest and so easy for her to make the choice to do this. And what more could be so amazing about what is sitting behind this forehead of hers? this bit, and her chest, big heart and a big brain. And I think that's what we, well, me as an older person, you know, sometimes we will look at different generations. Oh, you know, that new generation, they're, you know,
Yeah.
so selfish, or, you know, we all do that. And the
Yes.
generations before us did that.
Yeah.
So when I hear that amazing interview and conversation that you were having, John, with Tiara, I was just smiling ear to ear, because, like I was saying, I am so excited about this next generation, and you know, Tiara is one of those. She's just, you know, it's amazing.
It really is. It really is,
Yeah.
Richard. And Yvette, I have to ask you, Yvette, what do you want? Because you're a manager, you know, but what do you want employers out there to know about young caregivers? What do you want maybe schools to know, and others that may be unfamiliar with what they do, especially these young caregivers like Tiara?
I think sometimes it's okay to pause and ask people how they're doing, and wait for the answer, and then figure out how you can help them. I think a lot, we assume, you know, passing UTR in the street, we assume that you are not dealing with and caring for a loved one, right? We assume that everything is okay. And sometimes employers don't listen to employees, and then don't offer a solution. You know, we sometimes can be cold and treat people in ways that we don't want to be treated. And our mom taught us to treat people how we want to be treated. And I think it's okay to run a company, run a business, and care about your employees. It's okay to be in a school and be an administrator and teach, to actually ask students what they're going through and how you can help. It's okay to ask, and then it's okay to help them figure out a solution. And I think that's what most people want. They want to be seen, they want to be heard. And in some cases, they'll figure it out themselves, but they want you to see their humanity. So you are a care hero, Tiara. You're a care hero. And not a lot of people want to wear that cape, but you do it out of love and keep doing it.
You are a care hero, Tiara. And I got to ask you, Tiara, now that you know that there's a documentary about young heroes like yourself that are caregivers, what do you think about something like that? Do you think it's important that people that may be unfamiliar go out and check this out and educate themselves?
Yeah, it's good that it's out there, because it gives other people like a little bit of what like us caregivers are like doing behind closed doors. It gives them an example of like what we do, and like what we do from like day to day.
Amen. Amen. You are a care hero. And before I let you guys go, Yvette, real fast, what do you think? What do you think about Richard's directorial debut? I think this is your directorial debut, Richard. So what do you think? Go ahead. Go ahead. Tell me. You can whisper it to me too. Maybe. Richard
Well, there would have been some shots that probably would have done differently. No. Richard is fantastic. Great eye, great work, and it's a phenomenal film, and people should watch it.
Amen. I know I'm going to check it out. And Richard, before we let you go as well, why should people go out and see this, you know, to see this documentary on caregiving?
I'm hoping folks will, as we started, Joanne, talking about it, is that we will think twice about what other people are going through, and to listen to them, as was said by Yvette. And I hope that people are encouraged to care for somebody in a small or big way. And I hope that they walk away understanding that they will be inspired to a point where they may even cry. And it's a good one, right? It's a good reaction, and because it's about what we are lacking right now, and this is, I hope, something that offset it.
Amen. Well said, Richard. And Yvette, my condolences to your mother, who passed away a month ago. I didn't know that, so my condolences to you and your family.
Thank you very much.
And Richard, thank you once again, man. We really appreciate you and our young hero, Tiara. Thank you so much. I tell you, you are special. We applaud you for what you do each and every day. I at your age, I can't even imagine it. So you're definitely a care hero. We really appreciate you. And before we go, everyone, a reminder here for folks in South Florida: Sky Blossom streams on May 26th at Sunset Movie Theater in Miami. Also, it will be on MSNBC on the 29th and 30th. Do we have a time yet, Richard? It will be on MSNBC that folks can check it out.
6 p.m. Eastern.
6 p.m. 6 o'clock p.m. on the 29th and 30th. You could check that on MSNBC as well. And so Richard, Yvette, Tiara, thank you for being here and joining me on Voices. I really appreciate you because I learned something here tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Juwan.
Absolutely. And that's our show for tonight. You can watch this program this Saturday morning on NBC6 at 9:30 a.m. Be sure to follow me on Instagram and Facebook. I'm at Juwan NBC6. And you can also message me on social media if you have a story idea. And before we go, remember, that's what it's all about. Education is the key to success. If you believe, you will succeed. We'll see you back here next week. Have a great week.